Hi, friends. Welcome to tonight's live chat. It's good to see you. I'm so sorry. I'm hooking up a cord I forgot to hook up. So it's going to look a little weird, but it should come back on. There we go. Hope you guys are doing well. Thank you, Axe to Edge. I'm going to post your comment right up here so people can kind of see what I'm referring to. Thank you for letting me know that. I made a boo-boo tonight. What I did is I planned on talking about one subject. And then last night, as I'm reading, I'm thinking, you know what? I think I'm going to switch up the topics. I'm going to turn them around. It makes better sense that way. And so hopefully all of you are not on the other live chat waiting on me. It looks like most of you are here. So that is good to see. I'm just going to give you a little bit of time to find me, and then I'll go ahead and jump in. Let me also deal with Instagram because it's yelling at me and I don't know why. While I do this, I hope you guys are doing well. I hope you're feeling okay, and that the week wasn't too bad. There we go. This week has just been something. And right before I got on, I was literally an inch away from falling asleep. That's how tired I've been. So hopefully you guys have more energy than I do tonight. I think this conversation is going to be well needed. I see you guys signing in, which is good to see. I'm just trying to fix Instagram, so give me a second. Bear with me. We're almost there. But I'll jump into what we're talking about. So this conversation is pretty interesting for many reasons. But the two most common reasons I get this kind of a live chat requested all the time is because, number one, sibling relationships are difficult. And they're interestingly difficult. Let me write a welcome message. Hi, friends. Come to my channel to comment and participate. Good to see you. Okay. Instagram is looking good. We're good to go. Okay. All right. So, number one, sibling relationships are complex, and they are complex because they are part of what we call a sibling subsystem. So if you think about the family system, which is so intricate, even in families where there's not a lot of toxicity, the subsystems within a family is complicated in and of itself. The sibling subsystem is a subsystem of the wider system. The wider system is the family. The parent system, mom, dad, is subsystem, if I can say it, subsystem number one. Siblings are subsystem number two. And within those subsystems, there are dynamics. So there's a dynamic that applies to everyone, which is the family. And of course, think of it as an umbrella. I'm not going to draw it out right now, but think of it as an umbrella. So the family system is an umbrella, okay? And underneath that umbrella are the subsystems. And you've got a mom and dad subsystem. You've got a sibling subsystem. And guess what? Sometimes a grandparent subsystem, because they live with the parents or the parents live with the grandparents. So that is how I want you to perceive this going forward. Now, there are subsystems between siblings. The sibling subsystem doesn't always have conflict in there, guys. Sometimes there are siblings, and I know you know this, but I want to highlight this. Sometimes there are just siblings, they get along. They don't fight, they don't compete, they don't call each other names, they don't demean each other, they don't harass each other, stalk each other, want to date each other's partners or spouses, or, get in between that other siblings' business and create chaos. Like, there are some siblings who are beautiful and they're wonderful. And you just look at them and you say, that right there is a dynamic. That's a blessing. Why can't we all have that? Unfortunately, that doesn't happen in some families. And primarily the families that come and see me for psychotherapy, that sibling subsystem is so poisonous. It's not always, but when it does show up in my office, the first thing I think is, oh, geez, not this again. Because what happens in the sibling subsystem is competition. When the subsystem is off kiltered, it's competition, jealousy and envy, anger and hostility. There's a desire to be at the top or to manipulate and dominate the parents in their favor. There is also this competition sometimes between the siblings' children. So one sister's, let's say your sister's daughter and your son have a conflict. So sometimes it can be the siblings, but then beneath that are the siblings' kids. And they're going at it. They're fighting. They're clashing. They're competing against each other. And that's a really, really ugly dynamic. It's not something that can easily be rectified either, because a lot of times, and I know you guys know this, but I'm just going to highlight it tonight. A lot of times there's transgenerational trauma. There's generational trauma. There's intergenerational trauma. And it starts somewhere. And sometimes it starts at the great-grandparents, and then it trickles its way down to the siblings' children. And before you know it, your brother's son is competing with your daughter, and it's like, why are you guys, why are we doing this? This is not going to get us anywhere. It's going to slow things down. Let me also say, before I get into some of the meat of the terminology, I'm also going to give you a definition of jealousy, a sibling jealousy and envy in just a minute. But let me also say that sometimes the sibling subsystem is very, very much controlled by the family atmosphere and the atmosphere of the family dynamic. So there may be an atmosphere of conflict. There may be an atmosphere of trauma. There may be an atmosphere of triangulation, of manipulation. Kids can pick up on that. So when you're young and you're growing up under that dynamic, the family atmosphere, the temperature of the family atmosphere can be so high that it can make it really difficult for you to connect and to pull your relationship together as a sibling subsystem. Now, there's something known as a social triangle. I've also heard some people call it the drama triangle, but I'm not so sure those are the same things. Here's what happens in a social triangle. And if we relate this to siblings who don't get along, in a social triangle, there is jealousy at the core that tends to exist in the context of a social triangle formed by the jealous sibling. So let me go back over that. A social triangle is often including jealousy that tends to exist in the context of a social triangle that was formed by the jealous sibling. So in other words, this jealous sibling feels like, I have the right to be a certain way in mom and dad's eyes, or I have a right to be the sibling that achieves. I have a right, and I'm entitled to all of the praise in the family. And you are not going to get in the middle of this. And so therefore, we're going to have a problem because you're getting in the way of my space. Why are you getting in the way of my space? Because this is a triangle that I have created. And it's me, my parents, against you. And so that's the social triangle. It's, you're not going to shine in this triangle that I've created. I am in this triangle. Yes, I may be jealous of you. And yes, I may be harboring some envy and jealousy. But at the core of this entire thing, it is me, you, mom and dad. Mom and dad's a system. You and I are a system. Mom and dad, I'm running for their favor. Like the running for office. And there you are as the other sibling. And underneath the surface may be envy against you, for example, for whatever reason. Some people say, my sibling would never be jealous of me. What do they have to be jealous of? Well, let's not look at material things, because you may be very intelligent. You may be very attractive in your soul and spirit. You may be highly spiritual or called or blessed to sense things and read things and just be, everything that you were made to be, right? And so that can cause a sibling to really be jealous of you. So whether you believe it or not, sometimes a sibling is really jealous of you. So that sibling may have the attitude of, you're not getting in the middle of this. It's me, myself, and I with my parents. And you are going to be the one that I'm going to kick dirt on. And I'm going to make sure that I make you look bad in the dynamic, the social triangle. These kind of individuals also, they'll go to whatever step they need to protect their investment. And what is their investment? To look better than you, to get in the favor of mom and dad, maybe, to get into the favor of extended family members or grandparents, to make you look like the black sheep, to push you into the corner, to bury you in a sense, right? And so they will go to any extent that they need to empower themselves to be above you at all costs. And so this is a social triangle. It's a sad one, right? You may want to know, what's the definition of sibling envy and jealousy? Well, here's what it is. There's some research that highlights the definition as being complex, but this one definition I loved, and I put the reference to this definition in the description box so that you can go back into the articles that I've used for this live chat and you can see what the definition is. But here's what it is. It's it encompasses a complex series of social emotions that arises when the intimate relationship between parent and child is threatened by another child. So it's an interplay or a complex series of emotions that arises when the intimate relationship between parent and child. What's an intimate relationship between parent or child, or parent and child? I tell mom and dad secrets. Mom and dad favors me. Mom and dad looks up to me in a sense because they are proud of me. So they look at me and they say, I wish I were you when I was your age, or they are very proud of me and I don't want that to change, right? I get all mom and dad's favor and love. I don't want that to change. I feel like I get bought everything that I want. I'm supported. I'm the shining star sibling, or at least I want to be. And so here you come and you're going to get out of my way because I have something I need to do here and you're in the way. And so jealousy and envy from a sibling could be the result of a complex series of emotions that arises when the intimate relationship between parent and child is threatened. And that threat could be, again, maybe you're smart, maybe you're intelligent, maybe you went no contact and that was a good thing to do. Maybe you have had some kind of access to resources that they haven't had. Maybe your extended family respects you to a certain extent, or maybe you're the favorite person. Who knows? Whatever it is, that sibling doesn't want you in the way. So they're going to push you into as many times as they can. They're going to push you into the background, push you up against a wall, or try to get everybody in the family to see you as the black sheep, right? The one who is the rebellious, antisocial, not very engaged sibling, and that kind of anger can turn into hostility. And then it can also turn into worsening forms of envy, almost to a paranoid level. And that's a really sad reality. Most of us can look at our siblings and say, I want a relationship with my sibling. I want it to work, but can it work? And so that's where you often find your answer. The minute you ask yourself, can this work? More than likely, you already know the answer, which is why you're asking the question. You want to know, why do I feel like this is not a workable situation? Can this work? Some situations, guys, we talk about this all the time on the channel. Sometimes it's absolutely not going to work. And so then what happens? Well, you end up going no contact because you can't deal with the dynamic of that relationship. I'll share a clinical story with you just very briefly. Years ago, I'm going to say maybe 5 years ago, I had siblings in my office, wonderful siblings. Individually, they were fantastic. Love them. Both of the boys were from Mexico, and they were English speaking, born here in the United States, but they highly represented and supported their culture. So they would come in, dressed culturally, and they were so lovely. They would bake me things and bring it into the office. And I remember having a sibling session with both of the boys. Both boys were 15. So they're twins, they're fraternal twins. And I remember having a session with them and asking the question, what they were there to see me, by the way, for racial trauma, intergenerational trauma, dealing with some of the trauma within the family that they had been going through for many years, family trauma, the list goes on. So I asked the boys, I says, how do you feel, standing out in school? You're wearing, cultural clothing, and you do have a little bit of an accent, and you are a little bit more olive toned and darker toned than the other kids in your predominantly white school. How do you feel, and are you okay managing that? And the boys were trying to talk to me, but here's where I started to feel some sibling rivalry that was hostile, and it was envious, and it was sneaky. The other sibling who did less talking, the one that I was really posing the question to, was the one who was very socially engaged, very extroverted. And so he started to talk to me. And as I'm listening to what he's answering a question to me. I'm listening to his answer. I'm looking at him, but I also see a young male who speaks very well. I see a young man who is proper and prim. I see a young male who is intelligent and has the ability to continue to expand his intelligence. I also saw a young man who was proper and respectful and considerate, and he would pause and think about his answer very well before he would give me a response. And I love that, because what he was showing me in that moment is I am thoughtful, I'm mature, and I process, and I really want to get something out of therapy. So I'm going to sit here and process this, and I'm going to give you my best answer. And I just thought he was a beautiful child. His sibling, on the other hand, was eating some of the pastries they brought me. They brought me all these little sweet pastries, And so he, got him an Oreo cookie, and he's trying to eat his cookie. But as his brother was speaking, he was sitting across the room, gritting on his brother, huffing and puffing. You've seen that before. Ugh. Do we have to talk about this? That kind of thing. He started to turn his body away from his brother. So, instead of sitting in a way that said, I'm listening to you, he's, kind of turning his full back towards his brother, So instead of his brother being able to look over and see his face, he looks over and he sees him kind of turned away from him, which clearly spoke, I'm not interested in what you have to say. And I'm most certainly bored with this. And that's why I'm huffing and I'm puffing and I'm grunting, and the list goes on. He also started to chew on his cookies too loud, and then he's drinking his bottled water and he's clicking the bottle. And here we go. He's doing this while the kid's trying to talk to me. And I'm like, oh my God. And so that wasn't the first time I had seen this behavior in his sibling. This was the third or fourth time. So this was a pattern of behavior. So next session, okay, I said to the one who's very, extroverted and social, I'm going to just do a session with your brother today, okay? And if we have enough time at the end, I'll come back and talk to you. He's like, okay. So I take the jealous brother into the office, and I'm very honest with my clients. I never lie. So I said, we're going to start, and we're going to start pretty matter-of-factly. He's like, okay. I says, yeah. Let's start with this. I have a question. Why were you so noisy the last session when your brother's talking? I thought that was very rude. And I don't want you to feel defensive, because I'm not attacking you. I need to know what is going on here. Why are you doing this? Because you're a prim and proper and very intelligent young man as well. And I would think that you would want to support your brother, because you're twins, number one. Number two, you both are really the only Mexican children or teenagers that are in your school. So why would you want to make him feel like dirt? Why would you, as he's talking about what he's talking about, why would you try to cloud things up so I couldn't hear him, make noises so he would lose his train of thought? I think that's very self-serving, and it is a turnoff. And he says to me, well, I didn't know you noticed. I says, oh, I don't miss much. I may act like I do sometimes. That's part of my job. But what I'm here to understand is, why are you doing it? Because if you do it in front of me here in an office where you guys are getting therapy together, then what is your behavior towards him when you're outside of these doors? And, he just looked like a deer caught in headlights. But I went on to do 12 months of therapy with him, specifically for the anxiety that he would experience because of the internalized jealousy that he had towards his brother. Can you believe that? And the other brother was just growing and in his spotlight and was doing very well. But that child needed intervention because he was starting to develop almost like a personality characteristic of jealousy and envy. It was hard to shake him out of that mindset. And it was a very, very powerful emotion. Jealousy and envy, whether it's between siblings, romantic partners, family members, coworkers, it is a very, very strong emotion. And for some people, it clouds their view so much that they are unable to see you and to even see themselves. So a lot of times, a jealous person, an envious person, they don't have the capacity to become self-aware. They can't see themselves. It's almost like they've been swept up by a strong wave of jealousy and envy, and it blocks their view. They can't see you necessarily, because if they could see you, they could respect you and love you enough not to be jealous and envious, right? And to want to harm you and limit you. But a jealous and envious sibling or anybody, they're blind. And a lot of times they're blind to their own behavior. They don't recognize what it is that they're doing all the time. Now, some of their behaviors may be premeditated, right? Like this young man, clicking the water bottle. Oh, that was definitely premeditated. He wanted his sibling to lose his train of thought, and he wanted to distract me from paying his brother attention. So some of it is premeditated, but for the most part, once you allow envy and jealousy to kind of grow like a seed inside of you, it really does flourish, very much like a blooming flower would. And it's really hard to like hold it down, right? Because you're just like, that jealousy is just coming out of the woodworks, right? And so it's making you behave a certain way. And so, this sibling was going through that. And so for those of you who have a sibling who is jealous and envious, whether or not you believe they are, you may have had a suspicion, who knows, or somebody else told you your sibling is jealous of you or envious. It can be really difficult for them to communicate with you. And most of their rejecting, disregarding, rude, angry, hostile behaviors could be the role or the result of, envy and jealousy. And that's a sad reality. Now, there's, according to research on the psychology of jealousy between siblings, there could be what we call a lack of pro-sociality. Okay. Pro-sociality. And what that means is I do things socially that are socially acceptable. I donate, I help elderly people across the road. I give, stray animals food, and I pet dogs when they come by, and I give them treats. I try to help those who are blind walk across the street or get through in traffic or whatever. It's a pro-social behavior. Siblings who are hostile, angry, jealous, envious, according to research on this topic, does not have the capacity for pro-sociality. They tend to be very envious and angry. And if that continues to be a seed on the inside of the sibling and it grows, that can lead to conduct problems for the rest of their lives, right? They can develop into kids that have conduct disorder, where they are juvenile delinquents. They can be full of anger and hostility towards other people, and they can start to see themselves compared to you as lesser than. And so that can go on to form over time behaviors that are strictly antisocial and borderline sociopathic. I'll put it that way. Now, let me also say before I go to let me also say before I go back to the chat box, I see you guys chatting it up. I'm very interested to see what you think so far about this topic and what you've experienced. But let me mention this. There's a such thing known as an intimate hierarchical dynamic, an intimate hierarchical dynamic. And here's what that means. It basically is A younger sibling who tends to be jealous of the older sibling, right? Or the older sibling tends to be jealous of the younger sibling. Why? Because maybe they have over time developed a different intimate relationship with the parent. So consider this: you have an older sibling like I do. My brother is, I talk about him sometime on here. My brother is 11 years older than me. He's almost 50, guys. He's almost 50. And no matter how old we get, and no matter some of the challenges we've had in the past, although I've always been very close to my older brother, I've always looked up to him. Wonder if he's watching. I don't know. He could be. He might be working. He works like you wouldn't believe. But I've always been close to my brother. And even though my brother and my mom had a really rocky time when he was younger, and I'm talking really rocky, the love of siblings still remains. And so I always look up to my big brother in a way that I guess you could say it's not so much now because I'm older, but more so like that's a celebrity. I would be so happy in my younger years to see when my brother was walking through the door or he drove past the house and just wanted to say hello to his family. You know, I love my big brother. And even now I still do. You know, he took me to a endoscopy appointment a couple weeks ago, and I was, you know, I'm signing in, signing my name on the sign-in sheet, and the nurse at the front window, she says, "Who's driving you? Because you're going to be under anesthesia." And I said, "My brother back there who got here 20 minutes late. Sorry, I blame him," and we're all laughing and so forth. But I remember looking at my brother thinking, that's my big brother, and he's really trying to help me. I hate asking him for help because you know how sisters are. I feel like he should ask me for help. I don't want to ask him for help, but I love my brother. I love my younger brother too, but my older brother and I are like this. So there's this piece of me though that looks at the dynamic, and I look at my older brother who's 11 years older, and he's, I don't know, 15 years older than my younger sibling. I look at him and I think, has there ever been a point in your life? I don't ask him this, but I look at him and I think, has there ever been a point in your life where you looked at myself, you looked at me, you looked at our younger brother and thought, Mom loves them more. Mom loves them more. I often wonder if he went through that because he was the big brother. It was 11 years before my mom had me, and 15 years before, she had my younger sibling. So this intimate hierarchical dynamic can happen because of this kind of dynamic. Maybe you're so many years older and you look back at your siblings, your younger siblings, and you think, why do you have it so good? Why is mom and dad showering you with the best of things and putting me into the black sheep role and pushing me to the side? Or you may be the younger sibling looking up to your older sibling saying the same thing, asking the same thing. Why is mom and dad okay with you, but I'm the black sheep in the family? What's going on here with this dynamic? So sometimes the jealousy can evolve because of the intimate hierarchical dynamic, that the child and the parent is this close. Why? Because they have come at a certain point in life, right? Or they play a different role within the family, or their age or their birth order causes this kind of dynamic to be different. And sometimes the older sibling or younger sibling can't handle that. And it can be a lot, right? Let me also say too, that before I go to the chat box, if you're looking at a sibling who seems to have kind of put you in the mold of the black sheep, right? They've kind of pushed you into the mold of you're the unliked, or you're the disliked, you're the unloved, you're the rebellious one, you're the one with mental health problems, you're the one with behavioral problems, you are the problem. Most likely, it is not all your siblings' fault. Sometimes, according to research, it's the family dynamic in and of itself. So the sibling may have what we call prioritized status, meaning you're no priority in the family dynamic. You're not a priority in the sibling subsystem. It's, Carol over there, or Bobby, or Tiffany and John. It's not you. So the sibling may have prioritized status, which is why they're favored and you're pushed into the black sheep role. They may also have defining factors that sets them apart from you, that causes this sibling envy and jealousy and competition and this rivalry. So defining factors would be, maybe you were born, at a time when mom had a difficult pregnancy with you and she divorced her dad years ago and she doesn't really like girls that much. She prefers the boys. So where do you end up? Well, you end up in the black sheep pile because mom had a really hard time with you in life all the way around, from conception to birth. And so you feel like you're in the less than pile and you're unloved. Right. Another defining factor may be maybe your other sibling is smarter, more attractive, has more social power, tends to be liked by other people, tends to be, socially astute. The list goes on. The defining factor says they have something that you don't have, or your sibling has something that you don't have. And so sometimes a family can operate off of that, not just prioritize status, but defining factors. The other thing that influences this sibling rivalry is power differentials. Now, we know very briefly, and then I'm going to go back to the chat box. We know that sometimes older siblings automatically have a power differential. And I can feel that between my sibling and I, no matter how grown I am, how independent, how big my practice is, how many planes I've gotten on and, road trips I've had as an individual without anybody with me sometimes. No matter how independent I love to be, my older brother is still my older brother. And I find myself automatically, isn't it interesting how this happens? If it's happened to you, automatically you kind of fall into place. You fall into place in a sense, and it's kind of like this position of you're in this birth order, I'm here, and my younger sibling is here. And so as he was taking me to my doctor's appointment a couple of weeks ago, I thought they called him back after they drugged me up with anesthesia. That was the best night's sleep I think I've had in centuries, in centuries. And the doctor was waking me up, Tamara, being so gentle and kind. And I looked at him like, why are you bothering me? And he's like, you got to get up now. You can't spend the night here. So they couldn't get my brother on the phone. And I must have had a facial expression that said, are you serious? You can't get in touch with him. And so the one nurse, she was such a sweetie. She's like, I was like, are you married? Because my brother needs, Anyway, she picks up her cell phone. And so she's like, I'm going to call him. And I fell back to sleep. I was so tired, but he came back, and I looked at him and I says, hi, Mar. And, he's sitting there just smiling away. But our dynamic, our role is this, that, he's sitting and looking through my medical documentation that they gave him on the endoscopy and what that entailed. And, it was like a big brother stepping in. And so there's a power differential between us to a certain extent. The power differential is this, that he's the one who's 11 years older than me. And no matter how grown I get, he's been here a lot longer. And so there's some things he's going to be able to navigate that maybe I can't navigate, right? Or there's a few things that maybe he automatically feels he's in charge of. Doesn't mean he thinks I'm less than, it's just that he's the older one, right? So there's the power differential. What's interesting about sisters, and then I'm going to go to the chat box. What's interesting about sisters as siblings is this, that the script flips, right? So once that anesthesia wore off, I was the protective sister again. And, I'm the one that says, I'm the emotional one, and I'm going to help you think through this. And I'm going to give you this to support you. And I'm going to say hello to you this morning because maybe you're exhausted. The list goes on, right? So there's power differentials in the sibling relationship. And those power differentials can make it really difficult to have a relationship, right? Last thing in this category, and then we're going to go to the chat box. The last thing is the power role dynamic. So in the sibling subsystem is a role, right? What role do you play? Do you play the rescuer? Do you play the, intelligent, smart, wise one? Do you play the one who swoops in and takes care of your family? So are you a hero, right? So what is that role? And sometimes siblings who are in a dynamic that's complex, sometimes that power dynamic kicks in. when that sibling jumps into role and into action, you know. Me not wanting to bother anybody else in my life to take me to a doctor's appointment because I feel so guilty. I want to be independent for myself. I can't help it. That's just who I am. That is a dynamic in and of itself, right? Because I'm in the role of, I'm usually the rescuer, I'm usually the nurturer, I'm usually the caretaker, and I feel so bad asking you for help, right? My sibling, on the other hand, as an example, could be feeling like, you know what, I'm the older sibling and I'm going to swoop in and help her with whatever she needs me to help with so she doesn't have to bother anybody else, you know? So the roles that you play in that sibling dynamic can impact you for a very long time. All right, I'm going to go to the chat box, engage you guys. I see a lot of good stuff. I want to make sure that I get to that. Welcome you. We're going to talk about the common issues within a sibling dynamic that entails jealousy, envy, and hostility. I also want to zone in just a little bit closer on envy and jealousy just within that sibling dynamic. Okay, I want to zone in a little bit closer. And then I'm going to give you some insights on how this impacts you over time, because it can impact you over time. And I know a lot of you can relate to that. Okay, let's go back to the top in the beginning. Axe to Edge, hello and welcome to tonight's live chat. I'm glad to see you tonight. Always glad to see you on a live chat. Sam Hain, hello. I hope I said that correctly. Hello and welcome. It's good to see you and welcome to the channel. Ghost. Ooh, I'm trying so hard to get that one. Ghost Smoke. I'm just going to say that. It better be Ghost Smoke. Hello and welcome. It's good to see you tonight and glad that you are here with us. Yvette, hello and welcome. Good to see you in tonight's live chat. So glad this is timely. Lisa Cobb, Anthony Incognito, and Anon or Anon, and MS. Hello and welcome to all of you. It's good to see you back in tonight's live chat. Thank you so much, MS. Yes, I'm feeling okay today. Thank you so much. It's like, you know what I mean? Like up and down, up and down. But today is a decent day. So thank you so much for that. And Anon, I'm just going to say Anon or Anon. I'm going to say Anon until you correct me. Formally awake and peaceful. I remember you. So I want to make sure that I acknowledge that. I remember you. It's good to see you. All right, let's keep moving, guys. Okay. Annan says, I do feel like my older sister has some resentment towards me. She kicked me out when I lived with her, and I was going on dates and looking good while she was getting a divorce. I wouldn't be surprised. I really do wish that siblings would have the attitude of, good for you. I'm glad you're going on dates. Be safe. No drinking. Nothing else beyond, thanks for taking me out. Have a good night. Be safe, but be happy. I want you to be happy, right? I just wish sometimes siblings would just say that. I just want you to be happy. You know what I mean? But it very much could have been, I'm jealous because I'm getting a divorce. You know what I mean? It's awful. Patrick Black One, hello and welcome. It's so good to see you. And thank you so much for that positive welcome and statement. I always love to see them. And thank you for mentioning Cain and Abel, who are in the Holy Bible, and they are also in the book of Genesis. So if you want to, or I can post a link to this live chat, Cain and Abel, they are, I'll put it that way, the prime example of sibling rivalry, to say the least. And there's many other stories in the Bible. So I'll just try to post some links for you once we sign off. Tammy Nicely, it's good to see you, my friend. I hope you're doing really well. It's always good to see you. Yeah. Yvette says, why is it mostly the older sister that is jealous of the younger sister? Remember, it's that, and I know you probably got the answer earlier, but I'll repeat that. It's the intimate hierarchical dynamic. The intimate hierarchical dynamic. It is, I am envious because I am older, and maybe because I'm older, I'm being ousted because I'm independent. I make more money, or I have more money, I have more life experience, so I'm being pushed over here. Whereas my younger siblings are being coddled and spoiled and loved, and the list goes on. And maybe it's also the dynamic that mom and dad may have been very immature when they had their firstborn and didn't know much of anything. And now that the younger siblings, Yvette, are into the world, maybe my younger siblings are getting the best part of mom and dad, whereas I got the part of mom and dad that made a lot of mistakes. So that is a dynamic as well. Fairy girl, I'm always glad to see you. Excuse me. Yeah, welcome to tonight's live chat. Oh my goodness. Hold on, guys. I don't want to start coughing again. Excuse me. Okay. Let's keep moving. Because there's a lot for me to get to. Honest Living Journey. Hello and welcome. Welcome. Glad to see you in tonight's live chat. It sounds like you're welcome to the channel. I have to laugh because that comment in and of itself says I'm sick of this. Yeah. Yes. I'm not going to read that, but I'm going to leave it up there so people can see it. Sephoro class. I know I messed that up, but hello and welcome. Glad to see you in tonight's live chat. Yeah, it does sound like Cain and Abel for sure. Oh yeah. Okay, let's keep moving, guys. Phil Bradley, hello, and if I can get you to come up, hello and welcome. It's good to see you back tonight. The Good Glow, hello and welcome. Glad to see you in tonight's live chat. Hope you are doing well. Okay, MS says, my greatest hope is to go into therapy with my brothers. It'll never happen. Poisonous is an unfortunate but excellent description. I can only dream of harmony and not dysfunction. Alas, what can I do? I know. That's a hard one. And I'd have to know your situation personally to give you any kind of insight or any kind of guidance. What I would say is, I'm not sure. I know therapy, it feels like that could be helpful, which it could be helpful. But maybe if we restructure this a little bit and say, instead of going to therapy with your brothers, maybe your brothers will run into the therapeutic aspects of everyday life that says you've got to grow, you have to grow up, you have to become more mature, you have to be grateful for the family that you do have. If they are the only people that you have in this world, you have to be grateful for them. They may need the everyday life experience of feeling hurt, ousted, lonely, alone, the list goes on, in order for them, MS, to turn around their behavior and pause and think to themselves, I've got to make the best of what I have. And if this is my sister and she's willing to embrace me and work with me, then I've got to put out some energy to reciprocate. And so let's hope, MS, that somewhere along this road of life, they will get hit with so many things that it will bring them to a humbled place of, I need my sister. I want to make things work with my sister. I need to grow up and I need to change. I always tell people therapy is not for everyone. Sometimes you get in, it makes it worse. Sometimes you get in, everything is wonderful. Other times it's not affordable. It's not something men like to do. It's not something brothers want to do. So it's unappealing. But what I do want to encourage you, like I do my clients, to think is everyday life and life experience is therapy enough sometimes, because all of those painful experiences of life can sometimes break them and bring them to a place that you want to bring them to in therapy. I hope that makes sense. And I hope that gave you some peace of mind and some, some what's the word I'm looking for? Some comfort. All right, let's keep moving. Daughter of God, hello and welcome. It's good to see you. Welcome back tonight. She says, my older brother literally cut me out of family pictures. Yeah, I've seen that too. Yep. Thank you, Axe to Edge. I appreciate that. Axe to Edge said, not to brag, but the description was spot on. When people told me as a teenager that my family were jealous of me, I downplayed it and waved it away. Yeah, absolutely. That's the last thing you want to believe, right? How is my family members jealous of me? Some people even say, what's there to be jealous of? Sometimes there's a ton, and you may not see it externally, and you may not see it in your possessions, but maybe that wonderful heart you have, maybe that wonderful mind that you have, maybe that wonderful, ability that you have to just draw people in and put a smile on their face is a reason to be jealous. Bo sucks. I probably messed that up, but I want to welcome you. Hello and welcome. It's good to see you back tonight. April May, hello and welcome. It's good to see you. April May says, if a sibling avoids you at all costs for no reason, is that a clear sign they have a jealousy problem? It can be a clear sign of just about anything. And I can't say a jealousy problem. It could be that they just don't like the way that you live. They could not like certain personality traits. They could, not be very, close because you don't have anything in common. It could be the parent system favors you or them, or, it could be a lot of reasons. But if you want to specifically bring this down to jealousy, avoidance sometimes is the result of jealousy. When I have clients who are suffering from, I don't have this as much as I used to, but suffering from delusional jealousy, or this kind of romantic jealousy where they're afraid that their spouse is having an affair. They don't want their spouse, speaking to the opposite sex. They don't want their spouse, saying another person is beautiful, or, this delusional jealousy can sometimes cause that spouse to avoid their partner, or to avoid the person that they're worried that their partner may find attractive, if that makes sense. So sometimes avoidance could be jealousy. Other times it could be other things. I hope that answered the question. All right, let's keep moving. Nancy R., so good to see you. Welcome back, and thank you for that. Priya Mason, hello and welcome. Good to see you. Your comment. Yeah, I think so. Yeah, I think I know I'm on there. I think. If I'm understanding your question correctly, Priya. Laura Fit, hello and welcome. It's good to see you. Hope you're doing all right. Okay. Let's keep moving. Okay, guys. There's a lot of comments here, so bear with me. Tammy nicely says, I'm the scapegoat and the one that everyone talks about behind my back, but I basically keep my distance. Otherwise, my mental health is jeopardized. Absolutely. Absolutely. If you have a jealous or envious sibling, if you have a hostile sibling, or a sibling that kind of falls prey very easily to the conflict and triangulation within a family, you most definitely need to kind of protect your territory. And that may include backing up, right? Putting some space between you, going no contact as a last result. The list goes on, right? Because it can really take you down. Sometimes hostile, angry, jealous, envious siblings can cause what we call a family coalition, or I'm trying to think what the other one is, or family alliance. Family coalition and family alliance. A family alliance is when you've got a group of family members who come together on something that they agree on, and they kind of turn against you. So it's like, let's say, for example, you're the black sheep in the family. Between you and your 4 siblings, you're the black sheep. You're the one that never really wanted to be social. Maybe you've had some challenges. Maybe you don't go with the flow all the time, and you're kind of seen as, difficult or disinterested or problematic. Your other siblings, however, are very different from you. So what can happen in that situation? Well, your siblings may then go to your parents, mom and dad, and say, isn't she a problem? Here's what she's doing to me, or here's what he's doing, or let me tell you what he said to me the other day. What does that do over time? It creates an alliance where your siblings and your parents are on the same page about you. And so there you are, pushed in the background. A coalition is basically the same thing, but it involves 2 people. So it may be both of your brothers against you, right? Your other sister and brother against you. Maybe your half siblings are going against you, and they've created this bond between them because they're in agreement that you're the problem. So this kind of dynamic can really be ugly, and it's hard to untangle sometimes. Sometimes I find myself, if I'm very honest, asking myself, why am I seeing this complicated, very intricate family? Why am I doing this to myself? Because sometimes when you pull back all the layers of the family dynamic, you pull it all back, and sometimes you have to do it not layers at a time. But you ready for this, guys? This is why therapy is so difficult, and really pressuring to those who do this every day. You can't just pull back the layers sometimes of a very toxic family dynamic. Sometimes you have to chip away at it, just like you chip away. Sorry, guys, that dry spot. Give me 1 second. Oh my God, it's been haunting me all week. Excuse me. But sometimes you can't just pull back those layers. You have to chip away at it a little bit at a time, a little bit of chipping at a time. Once the full picture is seen, you can then see that, oh, wait a minute, this is a family alliance. This is a family coalition. Mom and dad is, very enmeshed with the brother, and they're all going against Tammy nicely. And this is not okay. That kind of thing can show up. It's a very ugly dynamic. Felicia, I hope that's correct. Lewis, hello and welcome. Good to see you, and thank you for that. She says, I'm going through the social triangle right now. Yep. I'll do a little bit of a demonstration if we have time later. Joe Martinez, hello and welcome. It's good to see you back tonight. Says too deep. Yeah, I get you. Absolutely. Hopefully this is hitting home though for many of you. Stacy Bell Bachia, I hope I say that correctly. I feel like it's not. It's good to see you and welcome. And God bless you too. That's so sweet. I appreciate when you do that. Yeah, absolutely. You're welcome. I saw you say that I can relate to this. Absolutely. Michelle N, it's good to see you. Welcome to tonight's live chat. All right, let me keep moving, guys. Then we're going to get back into the content, because you're going to want to know, what are the common issues within this sibling dynamic? How can this impact me? How has it impacted me? Joe Martinez, thank you for the super chat tonight. I appreciate you. Yep. I'm just going to put your comment on the screen. Dragon Man Assassin, hello and welcome, my friend. Good to see you. Michelle N is asking me, was this a personality disorder? Let me just throw this out there, that you might have a sibling. You may have a sibling who engages in all the behaviors we just talked about, and they could have a personality disorder. A personality disorder can make the sibling dynamic or subsystem really complex. Why? Because maybe your sibling pulled the antisocial traits from Aunt Baby over there, and maybe you didn't. Maybe you took more after your mom, who was more emotional and more emotional and transparent and humble and doesn't like problems and tries to make the peace, whereas your sibling who took more after Aunt Bibi over there tends to be attitudinal, angry, self-defeating in a lot of different ways, but blames everybody else. Maybe they're arrogant and self-centered. Maybe they're narcissistic and harmful. Who knows, right? And so, yes, to answer your question, Michelle, and there is a possibility that a personality disorder could be at the core of the sibling challenges. That is the scary part. Yeah. If you have a sibling, if you have a sibling who is, I don't want to say this, but I'm going to say personality disordered, right? They literally have a personality that's disordered. It's going to make it hard for you to have peace with that sibling. And so those are the kind of siblings that you may have to cut off, right? Or you may have to put up a really, really firm boundary, or you may have to kind of set the tone and then separate, go no contact or partial contact. Maybe we'll talk about the different stages of no contact at some point. But you may have to do that just for your sanity, because a sibling with a personality disorder, especially one that's antisocial, and sometimes borderline personality, there could be some emotions that are difficult for them to manage, some resentment and envy that's difficult for them to gain control of, and it can impact you for the rest of your life. So sometimes you just have to put up that boundary, right? MS, thank you so much for that. That's so, so sweet. And thank you for that. Yeah, I'm so glad. We do cover a wide variety of topics, don't we? Yeah. Yeah. My training has been extensive. So I'm truly grateful for the extensive personal and professional experience I've had. So that's why we're covering like a gamut of topics, you know? Christina Smith, hello and welcome. It's good to see you back tonight. Thank you for the love. Hope you're doing well, Fairy Girl. Thank you so much for gifting memberships. It's so wonderful, and I'm so glad when you guys are so generous and selfless. That's a wonderful, wonderful example of what we should be. So thank you so much for that. Okay, one last comment. Actually, Jovial says, hello and welcome. Good to see you tonight. Actually, Jovial says, to all the jealous people, you have great things about you too. There's no need to covet another's. Well, can I be honest? Because that's really what I love to do. There are some jealous people, though, who are like that because they know they don't have anything to offer. Have you seen that before? Like they're mean, they're cold, they're antisocial, they're miserable, they're negative. They're never happy for anyone. They are very angry and hostile. The road ragers, they like to make everybody's life a headache because they've got two wheels falling off and the BMW is going slower than the speed limit, right? So I want to say that the jealous individual has good traits about them too. Not always. I'm going to throw that in there, actually, Jovial. Not always, but for those who do have good traits and they are coveting or they are wishing they had what another person had, I do agree. If you just look at yourself, be honest and genuine, you may like you. So I do agree with that. All right, guys, let's talk about the common issues here. What's going on with these kind of siblings? The first thing is they have this, sometimes, not always, they have this internalized message or belief that has been reinforced by themselves or reinforced by mom and dad that they are better. They are better. Why am I better? Because, excuse me, why am I better? I played 1,000 baseball games and I've always been the best batter. I've done figure skating and I was invited to skate professionally. I signed my first real big contract when I was 21 years of age with little experience. Or it can be as simple as mom and dad bought me my first vehicle. They trust me. They paid my way through college. And now my dad's making me the supervisor of our family business. Whatever the case may be, the message has been internalized that they are better. And that is scary because what they're going to do with that, these particularly disordered kind of siblings, they are going to take that as a message and they're going to digest that and register it as I am better than you. And that is the ugliest thing, right? But it can happen. The other thing is with these kind of siblings, you can't just go to them and say, I love you. You're my sister. You're my brother. I want to make this work. Let's not fight. Let's get along. Why didn't you invite me to your wedding? Why would you hide your engagement? You didn't tell me you went to school. Why didn't you tell me? Right? Those kind of responses are the result of a dynamic that includes poor or no constructive conflict resolution skills. I'll put it that way. There's no constructive conflict resolution skills. It's I'm mad at you. I'm jealous of you. I don't want to deal with you. So I'm not going to say anything. I'm not going to engage you in my life. I'm not going to give you updates. I'm going to keep you in the black sheep role. I'm going to keep you in the role that says that you are less than in this family because I have absolutely no conflict resolution skills that are constructive. Okay, so that's a prime example of that. They may also have years and years of pro-social problematic behaviors. Psychosocial, excuse me. They're going to have, and I see this a lot in my office, they have psychosocial problems and behavioral problems throughout the majority of their lives. In other words, psychosocial would be developmental challenges, right? Bullying, harassing other kids, failing in school, getting into thousands of fights, not really adjusting very well to school or life, having a hard time learning, not listening to mom and dad, being oppositional defiant, not respecting authority. Those are all psychosocial problems that can lead to many years of issues. So you may find that in your sibling that you can't get along with, they've had thousands of messages, saying that they were expelled or detention, or they lost their job, or they were released from a position. You're most likely going to hear that they've abused drugs and alcohol. Maybe they're into thousands and thousands of relationships over and over and over, short periods of time. They have a lot of behavioral problems and psychological problems that are not rectified. So you're likely to see that. They may also have this attitude that causes a feeling within you of exclusion, that no matter what, even when they look to be to other people to be treating you well, they still carry around this attitude of, you don't deserve to be here. You don't deserve to be in this position, in this family, as a sibling. So I'm going to act like you don't exist. I'm not going to call you for holidays. I'm not going to call you for your birthday. I'm not going to text you. I'm not going to make an effort to get to know you, because really I don't have an interest. And you're going to be the person who's going to be on the back burner in my life. There's a little bit of arrogance there. I hope you can hear it. But that exclusion, right, is hurtful. So you may find yourself developing these internal feelings of exclusion, whether or not they appear that way on the outside. These individuals also have no negotiation skills. They don't know how to talk to you. They don't know how to ask for things. They don't know how to be a part of your life. They don't know how to negotiate with you at all. Maybe there's a disagreement between you two, or between you and your siblings, or maybe something bad has happened, or maybe you need to come together because mom and dad are passing away. You know it's coming, and you guys have to deal with power of attorney, executorship, and the list goes on. Maybe you're trying to come together in that way, and yet you can't, because there's no development of healthy negotiation skills within this sibling dynamic. So you're going to fight, you're going to argue, you're going to have attorneys writing things, you're going to really block up the court system with nonsense, because you and your sibling cannot get along, because there's no constructive negotiating skills whatsoever. I'll share just a brief story. I had a client a couple years ago, saw me on YouTube, reached out, asked me if I was taking new patients. Yes, I was. We did 4 months, and then she finally brought up the main reason why she was in therapy. Prior to that, it was anxiety and depression, and grief and loss. Mom and dad passed away. But after 4 months, she finally said, the reason I pursued therapy was because my brother will not sign on the dotted line so that he can have part ownership to our family home. And we need to be able to split the cost so we can sell it, we can fix it up, and then, invest some of the money. And so every therapy session was about a lack of negotiation skills, a lack of conflict resolution skills. They just could not get on the same page. And mom and dad must have been flipping around or turning around or rolling around in their grave, because these siblings were at it, and they couldn't come out of that state of nebulousness, right, or fogginess, because all they did was just fight each other with the pain of their heart. And so that was a horrible dynamic. But there was absolutely no conflict resolution skills and no negotiation skills. You may also notice too with your sibling, there's a lack of commitment. Maybe your sibling doesn't commit to you in terms of day and time, right? So maybe you can't meet each other. Maybe you can't meet for dinner. Maybe you can't have a conversation. Maybe she puts your texts off, or she totally turns a blind eye to all of your messages. Maybe she never invites you to anything, or maybe he never invited you to his wedding. You just found out he was married one day. All of these things are often the result of a lack of commitment to you, a lack of commitment to the family, a lack of commitment to the family subsystem, and the family sibling dynamic, right? Low self-esteem in these siblings. They may be jealous of you. They may be angry because you're around, whatever. Low self-esteem often leads to hostility and anger sometimes. So they may be bottling up their anger and their hostility. There's also a poor sibling relationship quality that is maintained through many years. A poor sibling relationship quality that continues for many years. Jealous sibling doesn't like you. Envious sibling calls you the black sheep, minimizes you, tells everybody you're the problem, skews reality a little bit, twists and turns things around to make them look good. And so what does that do? Well, it kind of chips away. Remember I said earlier, it's like chipping away at ice. Well, it's chipping away at your relationship. It's chipping away at your family dynamic, and it's creating a problem. And what's going to result is a poor relationship quality between you and your sibling. Isn't that sad? That is sad. There's also a parent's contribution. Parents contribute. They see two siblings fighting. Do they jump in and say, don't do that? I will not stand for this. You better be nice or you're going to lose A, B, and C, right? That's one way a parent should maybe deal with that. Parent observes sibling rivalry. Sometimes they giggle and laugh. I've seen that. I don't think it's funny. They giggle and they laugh. Did you see how he just looked at her? Yeah, I saw it. And I think it was rude. Extraordinarily rude. And you need to correct that. I said that to one of my parents a couple of years ago. And it was two girls that I was seeing for therapy, 5 and 6. And the mom looks at me and says, my 6-year-old is very sassy. She says, can you believe how she looked at her sister? And I said, yeah, I really can believe it. She's pretty much confrontational. She's rude. And she knows that you think she's keep doing those things. And so you're reinforcing that. And she's like, oh, that makes sense. I never thought of it that way. And I'm thinking, oh my God, because what she was doing is encouraging the 6-year-old to look at the 5-year-old as if the 5-year-old is a complete idiot. And by saying something to me, like, did you just see what she did? Is the tone is saying, I can't believe she just did that. I really like it, And so sometimes the parent's contribution can set things on the wrong path. The parent has to be neutral. The parent has to call out what's wrong. And the parent has to manage properly the sibling subsystem. And some parents don't. You guys know that. I know I'm going to go back to the chat box and you guys are probably going to say to me, nope, my parents don't manage anything. They just let things happen. I just believe clinically and personally that parents should intervene. There will be no gossip. There will be no backbiting. There will be no A, B, and C, because I'm going to see to it that doesn't happen between you. Some parents are not like that. They actually contribute to the problem. There's also a lack of leadership within the sibling subsystem and respect. You don't have to be older to lead. You could be the younger one and lead, but there's no leadership qualities in the sibling subsystem when it is hostile, envious, and jealous. There's this constant battling, though, for place and recognition and attention, right? What are jealous siblings? What does the research say about envious and jealous siblings? Well, there's definitely a loss of individuality for the sibling who feels like the black sheep. You can't be yourself. You can't, like who you are becoming or who you are. You can't have any comfort in your identity and your interest and your likes, your strengths, your values, your morals. It's just really hard for you to exist. And so some research highlights that if you have a jealous and envious sibling, they're going to block you as much as they can. And they're also going to block your access to your individual identity. They're going to block your access to an intelligent mind and brain. They're going to try to get in the middle of situations where you clearly have the upper hand or you clearly know what you're talking about. And these kind of siblings, they show a great deal of envy and jealousy to younger siblings. So 6 years younger, 5 years younger, 7 years younger, they find themselves, most of the older siblings, feeling jealous, right? Why does he, because he's 7, get that, and I get this because I'm 12? I hear that a lot in my office anymore. Why is my younger brother, who is literally 3 years old, getting more freedom than I have, and I'm 16? I'm sure some of you can relate to that as well. Research in this area also shows that jealousy is more common. I'll put it that way. It's more common because of the, I'm trying to figure out how to put this, because of the reduction or the reduced time, I'll put it that way, the reduced time that occurs between parent and child. So sometimes the jealousy, sorry guys, I'm looking at my clock. Sometimes the jealousy in the parent, in the sibling dynamic, excuse me, is the result of the younger child taking all of the resources and energy from mom and dad because they're younger. I have a young lady like that. She's 10. She has a really hard time with her younger brothers and her younger sister accepting the fact that she's not the only child in the family. So sometimes siblings may attack you and come after you because they feel like you're taking up all the resources, even if you are the black sheep or the scapegoat or the one with the problems or behavioral challenges growing up. It's still attention on you to get you help, to look at you, to engage with you, right? And so sometimes jealous, envious siblings don't want to deal with that, period. They don't want to deal with it at all. So they try to minimize your influence in the family. They try to push you to the background so people will forget about you. And they really do try to disrupt your stable life as much as they can. One last thing before I go to the chat box. We have something known as, I'm going to type this in the box. It is called the transactional, I don't know how I want to put this, the transactional model of relationships. Okay, I'm going to say family relationships. Okay, so it's the transactional model of relationships or family relationships. And here's what it means. The transactional model that helps professionals look at the model and fit it up against a family who's coming in for help, right? So kind of think of trying clothes on in a clothing store. You come in to see if you can fit the clothes, right? If you can, wonderful, you're going to take it home. Well, a model is something that is similar to that. We really do look at our clients and say, okay, wait a minute, what model is going to work here for this particular dynamic? Oh, the transactional model is going to work because here's what we're going to be looking at. We're going to be looking at the transactions that happens in a family where there's sibling rivalry. We're going to look at the transactions between both siblings and what happens. And so research suggests in this area that the transaction between siblings could be mutual influence, right? Both siblings are adding to the fire and creating chaos. It could also be context, right? Where you are, that creates the big problems between you. Individual characteristics. Maybe your sibling is just mean. Okay. You can look at his face. You can look at her face and see they are mean. All they do is gripe and they're negative and they're pessimistic and they don't want anybody to be happy, right? Sometimes evolutionary drives can get in the way, meaning you may feel like, there's no competition. Your sibling, on the other hand, has this internal, inborn evolutionary drive that says that I have to be on top and I have to win and I have to be center stage. And so now I'm going to start engaging in behaviors that kind of pushes me to that level that I want to be at. And so we call that evolutionary drives. They have these internal drives on the inside. And lastly, in this category of looking at the transactional model, again, it's the transactions between family members. And so this is transactions that happens within the sibling subsystem. Sometimes parental perception of what's going on can also contribute. You may have a father that says, I don't think they fight. Your mom may say, oh, yes, they do. And your dad may say, no, I think they're pretty good. They do well as siblings. What's going on there, right? Either dad's sorely in denial or it's his parental perception of things. And that can contribute to a worsening situation because here's what can happen. You may be seen as the troublemaker and your other sibling may be seen as the angel because dad strongly believes with his parental perception that you are the troublemaker and you are the problem. As long as we remove you from the equation, everything is good. And so sometimes parental perception of siblings can really thwart you and throw you off. All right, I'm going to take a little bit of a break, go to the chat box. I'm going to give you guys what the impact is on you, and then we're going to go ahead and wrap up. We're going to talk about siblings again tomorrow, but it's going to be just a little bit different, and it's going to be dark psychology. So you're going to want to come back and see me tomorrow. Okay, guys, let me put another comment on the screen. Excuse me. Okay, Captain Commenter. Hello and welcome. It's good to see you. Welcome to the channel. Excuse me. Captain Commenter says, my older sister thinks she's better than me because she was planned and I was not. Yeah, that's a horribly immature response. A horribly immature response. You know, you should look at her in pity, Captain Commenter. Look at her in pity. Are you serious? Are you really that unstable and needy that you need to be seen as better than me because you were planned and I wasn't? Makes no sense, you know? So I'm sorry you have to deal with that, but you may have to play it that way. Yeah, you may have to play it that way. And make her feel as silly as she's acting. That should not be a dynamic at all. Nancy R says, my siblings enjoyed my family role as the scapegoat, but resented my success I had. It was toxic. I believe that. Some siblings do enjoy the family dynamic, the roles that family members play, because if you are the scapegoat or the black sheep, what does that make them? Well, it might make them the hero. It might make them look better. It might be them, you know, it may make them feel like the rescuer, and mom and dad showers them with flowers, roses, balloons, and chocolates, and the list goes on. Why? Because you are now out of the equation and now the attention is on your siblings. So that's definitely a possibility. Okay, MS says, the idea of being jealous of another human makes no sense to me. Totally agree with that. I thought we're here during this lifetime to support each other, to become better people, not to bring each other down. Perfect comment of the night. I am going to star that. I very much agree with that. I never understood it either. I never understood it either. My older sibling, I'm proud of him. He's done well. Even though he, to me, was a rebellious adolescent. I just feel like he was a strong-willed, rebellious adolescent. He was a good kid. You know, he didn't do anything that was juvenile delinquent, but he did want to date. You know, he did want to go out when he wanted to go out and party. He did want to hang out with his buds. You know, he did want to try some marijuana and see what it made him feel like. You know, he did drive too fast and went over the speed limit and got hit with a ticket and got it, you know, like, he was a typical kid. But at the same time, I look at him and I say, that's my big brother over there. And he's doing the best he can with what he's got. And he's doing really good. And he has stayed married. You know, he has stayed a parental figure in my niece and nephew's lives, you know. And he hasn't become one of those deadbeat dads on the road who's out dating every woman he can and being irresponsible, you know. So and he knows a lot and he's very much intelligent. My younger brother is the same way. So I look at the both of them and I think, keep going. I don't look at them and think, who do you guys think you are? You know, even sisters, right, MS? They shouldn't be jealous of each other. If I have sisters come in to see me for psychotherapy, I try to engage them in activities where we bond together. And then I step out of the equation and I let them bond together. That's a beautiful dynamic for sure. So there should not be any jealousy. I very much agree with that. Yeah. Laura Fitz says, surrounding yourself with an envious sibling, it can be psychologically and emotionally dangerous. Yes, it can. I'm going to star your comment. I very much agree with that. It's psychologically and emotionally dangerous. And it is also damaging. It's damaging. Because think about a mother and a father who does not fulfill their role. What are you going to feel on the inside? What are you going to feel? You're going to feel this, wow, that hurts. That's not my mother. That's not my father. They don't care about me. I'm out here in this world on my own. Same thing can happen in a sibling relationship. And you're likely to feel this big void, this emptiness that says, I don't have anybody that's on my level who can support me. You know, I had a client that said her parents were passing away. They were dying a little at a time. And it's so amazing how both parents were dying of cancer at the same time. And what she said to me was this. She says, I'm going to miss my mom and dad. I'm going to miss them sorely. I don't even know how I'm going to deal with burying them. And it was as if I could literally feel her pain because I have the same thoughts of my own mom. And she says, but one thing I know is sure, that even when me and my siblings have to say goodbye to mom and dad, I know that I can cry in the arms of my older brother. I know that I can cry in the arms of my older sister, and they are the closest thing left to mom and dad. Does that make sense? And I remember looking at her thinking, that is a wonderful way to look at that. It doesn't necessarily take the pain away of saying goodbye to a good mom and dad. But she did teach me something there, that sometimes the sibling relationship bonds, it comes back together if it's been broken up, or it mends even closer when mom and dad pass away, right? So to be jealous, to be adversarial, to be minimizing and condescending to a sibling, it's just unbelievable. That was my long-winded answer or reply to you, Laura Fit. Okay, let's keep moving. Priya says, I kind of get it as the youngest sibling in my dysfunctional family, of 3. My sister is the oldest, my brother is the middle, and according to my mother, she told me once that she spoiled all of us. Yeah. Maybe she did. You have to kind of pause and ask yourself that, right? Did she really spoil us? Where's the evidence of that, Coral Sky, hello and welcome. It's good to see you tonight. Coral Sky says, hi, Dr. Tam and all. This is such a timely subject. I'm struggling with experiencing the sibling dynamic. Wow. Yeah. That's really good to hear that it's a timely topic, but I'm sorry that you have to go through that. It's a really hard thing to deal with, right? And a hard pill to swallow. You don't want your siblings to go against you and to be the worst nightmare that you never wanted to have, Miss Janine, it's good to see you. Welcome back. Miss Janine says, Mom always favored my sister. She always made me feel like it because I got married so young and had my daughter at 19, almost 20. It's always about money or me disappearing or disappointing her. Yeah. I'm sorry to hear that, Miss Janine. That's not a good dynamic at all. Not a very good dynamic. She may have to pause one day and look at that and ask herself, did I mistreat my daughter? Did I show favoritism? My uncle and my mom, I think we're in a little bit of a sibling rivalry for a little bit there. I won't go into too many details, but I will say that they didn't get along for a very long time. And my uncle, supposedly, this was something my late grandmother told me. She says, Jimmy, called up here and said that he felt like I was spoiling your children. That was my grandmother talking to my mom. And I remember being a little girl listening to this. And my grandmother says he believes I'm spending more money on Tammy and Ryan and Mar, and she says, but I'm not favoring anybody. It's just these are my grandkids who live here in my state, and his children are my grandkids that live 12 hours away. And so my poor grandmother was in the middle. Just stuck in the middle of that sickening dynamic. Sorry, there you go, Miss Janine. That sickening dynamic, and it's a very tricky thing because, in a sense, she did favor, I think, my uncle over my mom. But one day before she passed away in 2020, she came to her senses and she realized that I don't love my son any less. But I really have to consider who should be in charge of everything if I don't make it. And so it ended up being my mom and of course, me. But Miss Janine, I'm saying all that to say that your mom may come to a place in her life where she pauses like my grandmother did and says, wait a minute, I can't continue to play favorites. I have to be fair here. And so this is the way I need to go, or this is the way I need to think. So maybe she'll gain some wisdom over time, Miss Janine. All we can do is hope, right? Actually, Jovial says, I really needed this one, Tamara. I want an explanation. Very good stuff here. Thank you so much. And So glad that it's feeding you. I like to think that these conversations are actually feeding you. So that's wonderful. Thank you for that. Amy999, hello and welcome. It's good to see you tonight. All right, I'm going to keep moving so we can jump into the last part of the content. Amy999 says, if you are beautiful and talented, kind, then you are the main target in your family. Sometimes you're prettier, you have a different race in your blood, you have a different ethnicity or culture. Oh, definitely. Absolutely. Absolutely. Not in all families, but some of them, yes. Yes. I had a client like that a couple of years ago, maybe over 8 years now. It's been a long time since I've worked in a school district, but I did have a family like that. And I remember doing a session with two girls. They were siblings and they were both a year apart, 15 and 16. And I do remember seeing the jealousy in the family. It looked like mom was jealous of her 16-year-old daughter because her daughter was growing, right? So we've got this almost grown looking young girl under her household, and it was really getting difficult for mom. So I saw some envy with mom, some jealousy. That was my first exposure to parental jealousy of a child. And then not only was the mom jealous, but the younger sister was jealous as well. And so it was just a disgusting dynamic. Socialite Polity, hello and welcome. You're welcome. And God bless you too. That's so sweet of you. I always love your comments. You always seem to be very positive. So thank you for that. Okay, let's keep moving, guys. Okay. She loves, hello and welcome. It's good to have you and good to have you on the channel. She loves says, would you say this dynamic happens more with younger siblings, seen as taking older siblings' favored role? Let me make sure I understand this. Hold on a second. So would you say this dynamic happens more with younger siblings, seen as taking older siblings' favored role? I'm not sure I understand the question, and I can guarantee you it isn't you, it's me. I'm just really tired today. Okay, so would you say this dynamic happens more with younger siblings? I can't make out that question. Can you rephrase that? Tell me what you mean, or somebody help me out. Somebody help me out, because I know it's me. It's not registering. Would you say this dynamic happens more with younger siblings, seen as taking older siblings' favored role? So I can pull a little bit from that. Do you mean, does the younger sibling move into the place of the older sibling's favorite role? And so therefore the older sibling becomes jealous? Is that what you mean? Because if so, that can also be a dynamic. Yes. Okay. Correct me if I'm wrong. I feel like I'm wrong. So correct me. Okay. But I think that's what you're getting at. And if it is, yes. Sometimes younger siblings can move into the older sibling's shoes and footsteps, and they become the favorite, and the older sibling is ousted. That is a possibility, especially when that older sibling jumps out of the family nest and gets married and develops their own life. Then there's no need for the older sibling to be looked up to, because at this point, my kid is out of my home, if that makes sense. So hopefully I'm answering that correctly. Ellie Wynn, it's good to see you, my friend. Welcome back tonight. Danita J. Minor, hello and welcome. It's good to see you tonight. We're going to keep moving here so we can get close to wrapping up. Yeah, Nancy says I downplayed it. It's survival. Yeah. Sometimes you do have to minimize jealousy, downplay envy, downplay hostility so that you can move from point A to point B. But what's interesting is some families do that temporarily, and then they do a whole U-turn and come back to you and tell you, you weren't the best sibling. You were this, you were that. You need to show more respect, So it can be survival, but it also could just be you biding your time into that right moment, Some siblings have to confront, and that's okay. I'm going to put you up here, Duna Minor, so they can see what you're saying. Yes. Coach Fallon, hello and welcome. Or I'm sorry, I'm saying that wrong. Coach Falcon. Hello and welcome to tonight's live chat. Welcome to the channel. Coach Falcon says, many, is it borderline personality? I don't know what the BP is because I can see that in many different ways, but I'm going to just say the acronyms. So many BPs suffer with inferiority complexes and prejudice that goes unchecked. Agree. If you're saying borderline personality, yes, I agree. And it can make the sibling dynamic, the family dynamic really difficult. Okay. Din Woke, hello and welcome. It's good to see you tonight. Glad to have you. Din Woke says 100% resonate. A sibling that I love and did so much for because we were the close ones began to hate me and her baby daddy. I was shocked because I was behind on everything in life and they had it. Right, I understand. I botched that up, but yes, I understand. Again, keep in mind, it doesn't have to be material possession. It doesn't have to be attraction. It doesn't have to be anything else other than you have a wonderful personality. You're highly intelligent. You pull people in. You put a smile on people's face. Whatever it is, it could be internal, you know? Okay, one more comment before I go back to the chat box. I like that, fairy girl. I like that. That's beautiful. Love that. Love that. Captain Commenter says, this violent older sister of mine has never apologized to me either, so I don't envy her lack of empathy. Yeah, I totally get you. Yes, totally get you. Okay, I lied. One more comment. Stacy Del Buccia, if I can say it correctly tonight, says, thank you, Tamara. You're welcome. I go low contact. My mental health suffers, right? I have a counselor in person too. It is sad. I always loved my siblings. Yeah, I understand. Isn't it interesting? And we're going to go back to the final piece of this. This is part of the impact on you. Isn't it interesting how a sibling, you guys can come from the same canal, right? You guys can come from the same mother, the same father, and yet you blossom after infancy into two totally different people. Isn't that interesting? And sometimes in order to understand and grasp the totality of that process, you do have to think about it. Think about it a little at a time. In the same womb, right? Came down the same canal, have the same parents, basically the same genetic makeup and biology, sometimes the very same upbringing. How is it possible that siblings can go two totally different directions? And isn't it sad when you realize that you're going down the healthy road and your sibling is going down the danger road, right? Or they're going down the road of hostility, anger, and jealousy and envy, while you're going down the road of peace of mind, getting along with people, keeping your family together, keeping your own sanity, right? It's so interesting to watch how two siblings can sometimes look alike and not look alike, and they go two totally different directions. It is sad, right? Because the impact that they have on you, because you are so different and they have a different makeup than you, it can really be overwhelming. It can feel like you have been exposed to early harassment, bullying, and intimidation. What's the impact? Psychology that focuses on siblings and the subsystem of siblings, and I've also seen this in clinical practice, says that a weakened family bond can happen. A weakened family bond, meaning it's weak. It no longer stands. It is no longer able to stand up to the relationship anymore, to the family dynamics, to the expectations of the family. So there's a weakened family bond. Estrangement. There are different levels of estrangement. I'll try to post that video in the description box for you that I did years ago. But estrangement, you don't want to know me. You're jealous of me. You're hostile. You're angry. You're envious. I don't want to be a part of you. Get out of my life. And some siblings go way over there develop and build their own lives. And so there you have it. You have estrangement. There's also lifelong envy with some of these sibling dynamics. Maybe your sister or brother was always jealous of you growing up, but now you're adults and there's more jealousy, and now you have to deal with it, and you guys are senior citizens. Lifelong jealousy and envy is awful. I consider that not only a sin to the jealous and envious sibling, but I also consider it a major, major character flaw, and something is happening there. There's a personality disorder there. There's some kind of personality pathology that makes you jealous, that makes you envious. It's just a really, really bad thing. Sometimes the lifelong jealousy can say a lot about that sibling. Also, too, you may find that over time, you develop this resentment of crime, bad behavior, and opposition from your sibling. Maybe you're over here going off to college or getting a really good job or going to tech school, long-term relationship you've been in. You're not going to jump into having children just because you can. You're going to get married first. You're going to wait a few years to save money. Like maybe your life is really organized over here and it looks beautiful, but then you turn to your sibling and now your sibling is burglarizing people's homes, getting into fights and arguments on the, side corners or the streets. Maybe they're looking for prostitutes or they're prostituting, right? Maybe they're selling their goods, their body, their possessions for money, right? Maybe they're living in a drug house. Maybe they're in a drug rehab, but they are on the streets homeless most of the time. Like there could be resentment towards your sibling for being that kind of sibling in the first place. That doesn't help the dynamic, does it? But it is something that happens and it's fair. You want your sibling to be on straight street, not over here doing all the wrong things. Emotional strain. That's another impact. Emotional strain. Kind of consider lifting weights. You know how we lift weights? 10-pound weights feel good to me. I'm like, yeah, I got to keep lifting these things. You know what I mean? But some people will go on to 20 pounds, right? Especially men, or they'll go to 30-pound weights. And you see how hard it is for them sometimes. They're like straining, their body is shaking. They are trying to lift that heavy weight and succeed and achieve that. When it comes to a toxic subsystem between two siblings, the heavy weight, as if you're trying to hold up a weight, is the fact that you guys don't get along, period. No matter what. And so that is emotional strain. You may have the burden of total strangers on your relationship, the burden of being total strangers on your relationship. Total strangers, what happens? Well, usually we don't know each other. I don't care to know you. We're disinterested. I have no feelings for you. I have no attachment to you. I may respect you, but that's as far as I go. And so some sibling relationships are like that, right? They are miles and miles apart when they should be more integrated, but they are like strangers. So you may get hit with the burden of being a stranger, to your sibling. There may be a lack of healthy conflict resolution. And that's going to make it really hard for you to reconnect with your sibling or connect with them or trust them or love them. There is no healthy constructive conflict resolution. And that is a problem. And you may also notice passive aggressive jealousy. So this kind of a sibling, and you may get hit with this a lot over the years, harbors this hidden jealousy on the inside of them or envy towards you. And what they do is they keep it inside because they don't want you to know. They don't want mom and dad to know. They don't want the neighbors to know. Doesn't want family members to know. So I'm just going to hide. I'm going to hide my jealous and envious feelings from my sibling. But it's now spilling over into life because I'm angry. I'm hostile. I'm judgmental. I'm critical. I'm demeaning. I'm negative towards my sibling. And people have told me that's the only person I treat this way. So something's going on, right? So you may notice passive aggressive jealousy where the jealousy is there. You can feel it. You can sense it. You can intuitively sense it, but it's under the surface. It's buried way below the surface, but you know they're jealous. This is a lot, right, guys? We come back tomorrow. We're going to finish talking about this, but we're going to talk about sibling subsets in a little bit of a different way. So you're going to want to see that one. And again, it is dark psychology. So I will be talking about some things that are a little bit not taboo. That's not the word I'm looking for. I'm going to be talking about something that's a little bit more science-y to a certain extent. And I'm going to give you some professional experiences and examples. And there may be one demonstration. Okay, so you're gonna want to come back and see me. Okay, let's get through this, and then we're gonna wrap up. Coach Falcon says Black families need a lot of therapy. I agree. Black families, Hispanic families, right? Latina families, African families. You guys know what I mean by that. Most families need therapy, some a little bit more than others. And I would say the African family dynamic needs therapy, the Hispanic and the Black family, right? They all need therapy. There's a lot of dynamics with those cultures, right? Mark Lee, it's good to see you. Welcome back, my friend. Hope you're having a good Friday. Mark Lee says, my brother was over 14 years older than myself. Never a word of anger between us, but we both got involved with female narcissists. Oh, that's really bad. That's tough. That is tough. I'm sorry. That's all I can say. That's all I can say. Yes, you're welcome, Tammy Nicely. You're welcome. Yeah. Maybe we need to talk about family coalitions and family alliances a little bit more moving ahead. That's awful, fairy girl. I'm going to put your comment up here so people can see it. That is not good. I feel like if you do that in today's society, right, to a child, to a sibling, you're going to go straight to jail for child abuse. You're going to be charged with child abuse, you know? Yeah, that's horrendous. I'm sorry that you had to deal with that. Christina Smith says, I am at the center of a family alliance, not a fun position to be in at all. I agree. I very much agree. T Bunny Shy, it's good to see you. Welcome back tonight. T Bunny Shy says, I saw them from afar today. After no contact for 8 months, there were no thoughts, but my body and mind is severely fatigued. I am wiped out. I want to heal all the way. Yeah, I understand. It's an emotional experience. And emotional experiences does what? Drains you, you know? And I know exactly how you feel in terms of how that emotion can just drain you, you know? Some people, it takes them a couple of days to kind of bounce back, you know? We can call those energy vampires. We can call them, we can call the experience emotional hangovers. You just literally feel out of it. I totally get it. And it's common, so you're not alone. Napalm 1334, I know, right? Aunt Baby's a mess, isn't she? For those of you who have been with me for a while, you know that's my example aunt who is unstable. I love how you guys make fun. Look, here's another one. Axe to Edge. Look. I know Aunt Baby's a mess. We all have an Aunt Baby. Don't act like you don't. You do. Napalm 1334 says, I came to the conclusion that my sibling has severe mental illness and I must be very boundaried with them or no contact at all. Okay, that's my new favorite word, boundaried. In a sense, yes, Napalm 1334. I'm sorry you have to deal with that dynamic. Having a mentally ill sibling, sometimes you do have to say, here's my boundary. Here's the line in the sand. You are not to cross it. And you can talk to me. You can butter me up. You can show me love. You can ask a bunch of questions. But the boundary still remains. This is as far as you go. And I totally get that. That is, you know, for most cases like this, a very healthy response. It's a very healthy response. Okay, let me keep moving, guys, so we can wrap up. Anime Girl 16091. Hello and welcome back, my friend. Good to see you. Anime Girl 16091 says, my brother constantly shamed me for crying. Is it bad to feel your feelings? No, not at all. If you feel shame, there's a reason for that. If you feel embarrassed, there's a reason for that. It could be showing you what's in the inner chambers of your heart and what you need to work on. But you should never feel ashamed for crying. And if you feel like your brother shamed you, then you really have the right to cry. Right? I think crying is healthy. One, for one reason, it shows that you're not a sociopath, you have emotions. And two, it's very human. It's very, very human. All right, let me keep moving, guys. Actually, Jovial says, why do people think you're the most authentic when you are angry? Well, most likely because anger triggers that fight or flight mode. Anger says, I am now in that primitive evolutionary mode where my brain is taking charge, my heart is taking charge, blood is pumping through my veins, and I feel strong, invincible. I feel like I can handle myself, and I cannot think. Why? Because my executive functioning has been completely turned off when I'm mad. And so now there's no energy getting into my frontal lobes where I'm supposed to be thinking, weighing the pros and cons of things, right? Looking at what is and what is not healthy. I can't do that because it's now cut off. Now my primitive side of my brain comes through. And that's that part of the brain that's like a small almond. And it's called the amygdala. Actually, Jovial, it's called the amygdala. You know this if you've been with me for a while. I talk about this all the time. It's the emotional center of the brain. We also have the limbic system, which is like right next door to the amygdala. And that's our emotions. And that's the primitive part of who we are. And so the minute the brain perceives danger or perceives danger, it triggers. And so sometimes that triggering response is the result of feeling energized by that anger. And so that's why you're more authentic. You don't have time to process in the frontal lobes, you know, A, B, C, D, E, F, G. You don't process that. You're impulsive and you do what it is that you need to do. So maybe that's why. That's my explanation. The other piece of that, I think, is, you know, when you're angry, you don't care what people think of you. You're angry. You know, have you seen somebody yelling in public? Oh my God. The other day I was in Dollar Tree and cute little baby. Oh my God. And she and I were talking. She's talking to me about Cinderella, Disney movies. I says, really? And we're in line, you know. And I said to Mom, I said, she's a beautiful baby. And Mom says, oh, thank you so much. She really is. Dad comes over, okay, clearly needs help, and starts yelling at the little girl, saying, I told you you're not allowed to steal. You're sitting on that item. I told you. And this little baby has to be about maybe 5 or 6. But his anger was so ferocious that the entire Dollar Tree, okay, was listening to his big mouth. And it's like he had no embarrassment, no shame, no guilt, right? Because at that moment he was mad. That's clearly a dad who has big issues, right? But that's reason number 2, actually, Jovial. Okay. Seed Kane, hello and welcome. Good to see you. We're going to sign off here in 2 minutes. Seed Kane says, make sure you have a crisis epidemic team ready. Oh God, for socialization of class hate and the impoverished. It doesn't sound like we're talking about the same topic. I think we're talking about something very different. Okay, let's keep moving. If not, forgive me, but that's kind of what registers in my mind. Okay. Jeremy Robinson, hello and welcome, my friend. It's always good to see you in the chats, in the chat box comments. Jeremy Robinson says, like when I started working at 19, when I was still going to school, my youngest sister and brother started insulting my job. That can be considered jealousy or envy. Yeah, sometimes some people just don't like to see you rise, right? Some people don't like to see you rise in the morning, much less rise to the top. And that could be getting a job that you didn't have before. That could be getting married, which is something they don't have the opportunity to do. Some people just simply don't like to see you rise. And especially those siblings who are against you, right? All right, I'm looking for my last comment. Regina Myers, hello and welcome. It's good to see you. Welcome back. Yeah, happy Labor Day to you. I feel like we all just, this constant cycle of work and work and work and work and work and work. Doesn't it tire you? You know, I get up in the morning and I'm like, okay, I love my clients, but I want to go back to sleep. And that clock didn't just wake me up because I'm getting really tired. And so I know you guys can relate to that. Sometimes you just want to stay in bed, you know, so that constant go to work and go home, get up in the morning, go to work, come home. It's a tiring cycle. So I feel like Labor Day is a day where we should be doing absolutely nothing, right? Good Vibes 30, hello and welcome. Glad you could catch a live tonight as well. It's good to see you. Live life. I'm not going off without seeing you. Hello and welcome. It's good to see you tonight. Thank you so much for that. Thank you. Thank you. Yes, we have to tackle these real subjects, right? Okay, one last comment. Thank you, Regina Myers. I appreciate you for that. Thank you. Okay, you're my last one. M&L Odell. I love this comment. It's so real. Okay, you ready, guys? It always amuses me when people are jealous and coveting of others. Do whatever you can to develop those qualities in yourself and stop grasping at others just because you want what they have. Grow up. MNL Odell, the whole chat is gone. We're done. Session over. I really like it. I'm being silly. I really like that. I very much agree with that. Very much agree with that. And when it comes to jealous, envious, hostile siblings, right? Develop those things in yourself that you're so jealous of your sister and brother of, right? It's a waste of time to be jealous and envious. It's a waste of energy to covet. It's a waste of brain power, right? To be a hostile sibling. Do what is right, right? And I love the fact that you say grow up. Thank you so much for that, MNL Odell. I appreciate that. I love that comment. Good way to end the chat. Thank you guys for being with me tonight. I hope this was helpful. Hope it was insightful. Come back and join me tomorrow because we're going to talk about siblings again. But again, it's going to be dark psychology, and I love dark psychology. So we're going to talk about it, all right? Have a wonderful Friday. I'll see you tomorrow. Bye-bye.